you do when you're stressed out to the max? I mean, when life is pressing and it feels like your back is against the wall. What do you do when it feels like life is literally up to or about your mouth and it feels like you're about to drown? Well, after 3 months of talking to Kurt, he finally decided to open up. We were having breakfast behind an abandoned building in the heart of the city. He told me, man, like you're not going to believe this, but when my wife died, when my daughter died in that car wreck, I literally lost my mind. He says, as a matter of fact, man, I was so stressed out, I did not know what to do other than turn to the bottle and try to drink myself out of it. He says, I literally stopped moving in this life. He also said, man, that I started to downward spiral so much that I found myself here, sleeping behind this abandoned building. The conversation got a little deeper because I decided this morning I was going to challenge Kurt. I say, Kurt, man, like you're sleeping behind this abandoned building, man. Like, I'm your friend, and why don't you just go and sleep in a shelter? Like, why don't we just get you off the streets and move you to a shelter? And he says to me, he says, man, there's a shelter right down the street. There's about 500 guys that sleep in there, and they all sleep in chairs, and it's only one urinal. And he says, man, the smell is so thick you can taste it. He says by the time you get around midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning, you'll want to leave. He says, I bet you if you slept there, you'll be on the backside of this building with me because it's more comfortable. So I decided to take Kurt up on that offer. I remember driving home, man, and I couldn't wait to talk to my wife because I was so moved by his story and moved to do something other than sit comfortably within the four walls. I say, babe, over dinner, I said, I think I'm supposed to live as a homeless person. She says, what? I say, yeah, I think I'm supposed to take off my shoes and put on the shoes of someone else's to literally understand how they perceive life from their lenses. Because it's one thing to generalize and say everybody's story is the same if you're homeless, but it's another thing to take off your shoes and understand a person's story from their perspective. So I did just that. I lived under a bridge for a long time in the heart of the city. They called it Tent City before they destroyed it. I built many relationships with individuals like this guy named Robert. And Robert, over the course of our time together under this bridge, man, so many people crowded around me. I was able to sleep in tents that they rallied together to get me. When my feet got cold in the middle of December and I had to stay up late at night because my toes felt like popsicles, my friend Tony, who has HIV and no medication, would go into his tent and donate me his last pair of donated socks. I built real, authentic relationships. And when I found out Robert's story and how his first experience with crack cocaine came from his mom at 14, it started to deconstruct my thoughts. The second night, he said he wanted to get plugged into a community of faith, and we did just that. And we got Robert off the streets only to crowd around him and love on him and give him the dignity that he deserved. And so follows, we got about 12 more people off the streets, and we started to use social media about this concept of love beyond walls. What does it mean to bring people together from all walks of life, no matter what economic status you're from, no matter what church you go to, no matter what neighborhood you live in, to take this concept called love beyond walls and all of the isms that sometimes divide. And people started to crowd around this vision of love beyond walls. And we started to build authentic communities in low-income neighborhoods and with homeless people under bridges. And then Legoland called. Legoland called and said, hey, man, somebody on our staff is follow you guys, and we see that you're doing stuff in the community. We had just started, I'm talking about 2 months in, and they say we want to partner. So me and my wife, we scrambled together, and we got bins, and we said, yeah, we can partner. It was our first partner, and they raised supplies for us, and we started to mobilize more people. But under the bridge, I learned something very important, that if you're homeless in the heart of a major city, that you walk a lot, because I walked a lot. And as a matter of fact, you walk so much, the physical wear and tear literally takes away from you even thinking about climbing out of a pit. And I put a Fitbit on one of my friends. And I say, bro, man, like, I'm going to track every step that you take in a week. And we soon discovered that sometimes homeless people walk 30 and 40 and sometimes 70 miles a week. Shoes are comparable to tires. And when I got that Fitbit back, I said, Robert, man, for every mile that you walk, I'm going to walk a mile to raise awareness about this issue. So I did just that. I walked from Douglasville, Georgia, all the way to downtown Atlanta, and people started to crowd around this campaign because we was giving voice to homelessness, voice to people who are oftentimes forgotten. And I started to walk, and it took 15 hours to do this, and I leveraged social media to move people. And by the end of the walk, there was hundreds upon hundreds of people who came and took off their shoes too and donated it to our organization. Within 7 days, we raised 12,000 pairs of shoes. People were shipping shoes from all across the country, and we got 12 more people off of the streets. And for the first time, like, I literally understood, like, if I'm homeless and I'm not wearing my proper size and I need to collect 5 pair of socks just to sit or wear the size shoe so I can walk around, it's a little more human, it's a little more dignifying to give somebody their correct size. And people started to crowd some more. And then 3 months into our organization, I'm approached by a friend, and she says, man, I found this building because we had tons of U-Haul spaces. Over 30,000 items donated in less than 3 months, and we didn't know what to do. We wanted somebody's closet, a back office. Just loan us something. We're a startup. And we found this building. It's the Love Beyond Walls headquarters. We mobilized, and I spoke at a church, and I was talking about the efforts that we were doing, so much so that people started taking their shoes off and dropping them in the offering buckets. And a pastor comes up to me afterwards and says, hey, man, we want to pay for your first year rent. Then we started to mobilize volunteers from all across the city who would come and serve with us. And this guy named Raj in India, who's never been to the States, is following us digitally. And he says, man, I love the fact that you guys are selfless. You take off your shoes and dare to step in somebody else's shoes. And he started to do the same thing for orphans in India, so much so that he started like a small Love Beyond Walls in India to serve orphans. So this concept of love began to grow, and I started to discover that, man, when we take off our shoes and literally dare to walk in somebody else's, we get a clear picture and an opportunity to literally understand how life is from their perspective. That's dignifying. That's giving dignity. And then I did it again. I asked my wife, could I donate all of my clothes to charity and only wear one outfit for 90 days straight to raise awareness about Title I school kids who go to school, who live below the poverty line, and sometimes wear the same outfit every day that people forget about. At the end of the 90 days, we mobilized more people, and then we started to build closets for these Title I schools to solve the issue. So when a child is sitting in class, they don't disconnect from the lesson because they are so concerned about a stain on their shirt that their mom and father could not wash. And we called it Closet Strike. And then it began to grow and grow more and more, and kids were impacted. And then other people started to share their story of Love Beyond Walls and what it means. And people started to crowd around, like this volunteer who takes this young lady in with 7 kids, teaches her how to get her education, finish high school, and then get her own housing. And to this day, she has her own place to stay. That's Brittany. And then other people started to get involved, and more people started to get involved, and people began to take Love Beyond Walls everywhere that they went. And it was more than just about homelessness. It's about the poverty issue that is suffocating our country all across America, where people are dealing with stories that we really don't hear about. And then 6 months into our organization, a church calls and says, we want to donate a bus. And then I met this guy named Leonard. And at the gas station, he was digging in trash. And I said, man, if you had one wish after learning your story, what would that wish be? He says, man, I have not showered in 2 months, haven't shaven in 3. He said, I wish I could be made over. So with the spirit of Leonard and this bus being donated, we said, hey, we learned more stories, and people started to say, man, it's hard to even walk into a building and get a drink of water without somebody judging us. So we created this mobile unit with a barbershop and hygiene station and closet where we could literally make people over on the spot, use it as a conduit and a resource connector to other further resources that would help them out of the pits they call life. And you may see us cruising through the city, set up on the prowl, seeing who we can love on to give dignity back to. And since this has launched, not only have we served over 30,000 people in the last 2 years in the city of Atlanta and abroad, but we've provided over 800 makeovers and have referred over 2,000 people with this bus. So much so that even one of our own barbers, whose father was homeless, was able to reconnect and run into each other after 2 years of not talking. And then we said, man, we got to start giving these guys something to do. So we taught homeless guys how to take old reclaimed wood and turn it into pieces of art and build furniture out of it. And people started to buy their art. And we were able to employ 7 guys within the last year and do over 2 art shows across the city. And we're still taking Love Beyond Walls. And many people ask us, where will we go from here? You guys do a lot. The reason why we do a lot is because a lot is needed to be done. We're lodged in a city with over 200,000 people. Most of them live in poverty. And many people come to our offices every week who are food insecure, who are homeless, who have nowhere else to go. And sometimes when we provide a single mom with groceries, and we discover that she has counseling, and we say, hey, we got a great organization for you. We can connect you. She starts to think about the roadblocks, because I got to find money to get on public transportation just to get there. I got to find out how I will get there. So we came up with this idea called the Love Center. What if this center provided people resources and came alongside people from a holistic perspective, where we could provide counseling at the same place that there's food, at the same place that there's a medical clinic, at the same place that there are grooming stations where homeless individuals can come on our campus and shower, because sometimes helping somebody get out of a ditch, it's about removing the roadblocks, pulling those roadblocks out of the way so they don't have to think about what they're stressed about. Because sometimes when we're stressed, it's hard to think about a future. Will you help me design a concept that would serve South Fulton, the south side of Atlanta, to reach more people from a holistic perspective? Thank you.